Absolutely true. And on that note,
it.
we have a very exciting start to the episode because for the first time on the Marty and Jaden show, we are doing our first mail time.
Welcome to the Jaden Marty show. I'm Marty, and this is Jaden.
Welcome back. It's good to have you.
Happy to have you. Today, we're just going to have some fun. We're going to have some chat about some good topics. We're going to start first with books that we've read over the past year or just any time in the past of our lives, books that we love, and books that we think that would be good recommendations for others. Then we're going to get into some books that we'd like to read over the next coming year, hopefully with everything else that we're trying to read for the reread of Sanderson.
It's going to be a fun one. As a little bit of an intro, we're still pretty new to this. We're new to the podcast game. We're figuring things out. But we are absolutely loving it. It's been so much fun. We've got a lot of time to talk about Brandon Sanderson. We've talked about the books that we like to read. We've even deviated into other worlds other than Sanderson. So we'll talk a lot about the books we've enjoyed. We'll talk about some of the books we plan to read, like you said, this year. And there's a couple extra cool elements that I think we'll add to the video. So Hopefully it's fun. Hopefully it's enjoyable.
Hang out with us.
Exactly.
With us. It should be a lot of fun.
It's a chat. It's fun. It's a good time. And most podcasts, I read this today, don't make it past 10 episodes. So we are not like most podcasts. I can say that officially.
Are we, what? You said episode 18?
This is episode 18.
Wow. We've made it. Almost double.
Have made it. We're double as good as most bad podcasts.
Wow.
That's something.
Doubly bad.
I'm hoping it's not that way.
Just kidding.
I don't think it works like that. But I'm excited to see what the next 18 episodes hold because this is fun.
Well, we couldn't do it without our subscribers. And so
absolutely true. And on that note, we have a very exciting start to the episode because for the first time on the Marty and Jaden show, we are doing our first mail time.
What?
The package arrived.
No way.
I picked it up today. This is our first package sent to us, sent to the show, to you and me, to open on our podcast and to participate. I don't know. Do I have to cover everything up?
Wow.
It's not that close. You can't read this.
We'll blur it out if we need. Now, I honestly, so Jaden said that he had a surprise for me. I had no idea what he was talking about.
Is it a good surprise?
This is a great surprise. I was honestly,
That's why I brought my knife.
I was wondering why you were holding that knife. I'm like, you're like, I've just been playing with it all day. I'm like, okay, whatever. But this is cool. I actually just watched the most recent Captured in Words video. And he has...
What a good guy, by the way.
Good guy. He's actually... We mentioned this in other videos. We're still stoked. He is following us.
Stoked.
He's a subscriber.
So
He's a subscriber.
Welcome, Jay.
We love that guy. I've watched his videos for a long time. And it's just... I mean, your heroes, when they start subscribing to your videos, it's the best.
Good day.
But he was doing mailbag openings and on books that he was getting sent from people. And he's like, I'm going to read this and that. And I'm like, it's happening, dude.
It is This is our first... If you want to reach out or you want to send us something, this is so fun.
Oh, yeah. We'll do it all day.
Send us stuff, man. I love that.
We love to read your stuff.
Okay. You ready? Should I open it?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll just put this knife down. I don't want to kill anybody.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, careful with that.
But...
Give some background here.
Okay, some background. That's a good way to start before I just whip this open. This author reached out and said, I'd love for you guys to read and review my book and potentially interview. So we said... Heck yeah, that sounds great. We'd love to. We like to read. So we said, go ahead. That'd be super awesome. Send it to us. His name is, and I'll be honest, it looks a heck of a lot like Skellington, but it's Ryan Skeffington.
Uh-huh.
And so he's not the guy from Nightmare Before Christmas. But this is his book. Do you want to?
I'm surprised you even know that name so well.
Jack Skellington? Everyone knows that name.
I saw it for the first time just the other day. My son, like a month ago.
Your son's 3 years old. What are you watching?
He loves that movie, man. He's it. Anyways, okay, so let's check it out.
This is the book that we are going to be reading and enjoying. Here, I'll give you your copy.
Oh my gosh, dude. I am so stoked.
This is... Oh, how do you make it so that it's still... going to your face. Whatever. They're going to have to get... I'll put some picture of it. This is Lost Souls by Ryan Skeffington.
Wow.
I'm excited. Thank you, Ryan, for sending this to us.
Thank you.
Super cool. We're excited to read it.
This is amazing. Honestly, okay, let me look at this, though.
This is our first impression. There you go. It's our first impression review.
This looks amazing. Look at the cover here.
The art is great. Did you do the art? Did Ryan do the art?
Oh man,
I don't see any art. He must have done the art. That's awesome.
He could have used AI. People do that these days.
Well, is AI this good? I don't know.
Oh,
dude, he signed them!
Oh, that is the
No
best.
way.
Check that out.
That
I'm
is...
so glad he signed both of ours.
Dude,
I was worried
that's
when you said
awesome.
that it was just you. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
Just for Jaden. For just
yeah. He signed mine twice.
Yeah, he wrote like a lovely note for you too, I'm sure.
That is so cool.
Wow. I just love like these like robot characters in here. Like that's going to be cool. Is he carrying a hammer? Oh man. This is super cool.
This is going to be good.
Yeah. Wow. So this book is called Lost Souls by Ryan Skeffington. So check it out. Check him out as an author. We're stoked
Our review is
going to
be incoming. Our review is going to come up soon, probably. I mean, we're deep into Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive right now, but we will find some serious time to read through this book and give our completely honest review. But I will just say we're both pretty stoked to have received a book in the mail. That's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I'm so
Our
stoked.
first mail time is officially done.
Wow.
And hopefully many more to come.
Yeah.
That was fun. I enjoyed it.
That was really fun. I'm really excited. I am going to add this to my pile of books to read.
Our recommendations for reading this year, right? Or
Yeah.
what we're going to read this year.
What we're going to read, yeah. I don't know if it can be recommendations yet because we haven't read them yet. But
Ooh, that's a good point.
Yeah. This one, though, definitely in the to read pile very soon.
Cool deal.
I'm so stoked about
Thanks,
this.
Ryan. We love that.
Wow. Big fan
Look
of
at that. He has a quote from a U.S. Space Force officer on the back.
Wow.
A heart-wrenching sci-fi that ends with a bang.
I wonder if he, knows one or he just got,
Someone just read
advice
it?
from him or whatever.
I hope we find out. Maybe this will be all good questions for the interview.
Yeah,
We get a chance to get Ryan and
I'd love that, man.
talk to him. These came straight from Oklahoma, from OKC,
Wow.
the basketball team.
Wow. Wonder if he's a fan.
Probably.
Gotta be a fan if you live there, huh?
I think it's a rule.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's gonna be a fan of the rival team. And
That was just expose him.
I know.
He can't go back to his home.
I
Okay.
know. He's like, how dare you?
That was a good time. Hopefully, it was a fun surprise.
Yeah, that was an awesome surprise.
Quick mail time segment.
I was literally not expecting anything like
yeah,
that.
that's a good time.
I was wondering if I was actually just thinking the other day. I'm like, I feel like Jaden would have told me if that guy ever replied to us, and guess he
No,
didn't.
it's been a good. I was building up to the surprise. I went to the post office today.
Wow. How long have you known about this?
A couple of weeks. I knew it was going to come this week.
Wow.
I am that good at keeping secrets. You better
I'm
believe
not
it.
very good at keeping
I am
secrets.
a vault. A vault of secrets.
How about that?
Okay, so the main element that we want to talk about today. I know we kind of a long intro,
I love it.
but our goal was to talk through what we've read recently that we really, really loved. Books that we've loved over the last maybe couple of years.
It doesn't even have to be recent.
What's your time
Just
frame?
I don't know. Just books that I've really liked. Because, this is more of an introduction as well to us. Because
That's a good point.
you guys don't know us and our channel yet as much, and so we're getting more into it. And so we want to share with you a few of our favorite books. Not all of these books will be fantasy, fun fact.
Most of the books that I read are not fantasy.
I know. But we're getting Jaden more into it. He's
loving it.
We're
He's
helping him
loving
out. Yeah. But there are some books fantasy, some books not fiction, and so we want to chat about some of those or some of our favorites that we've read, and
Yeah,
then
I like
also
that.
then eventually next we'll get into books that we're going to read next year.
We plan to read in 2024.
So
To be honest, there's a lot of books for 2024 on our list of podcast books that we have on our plan. Because big thing that we're doing right now, if you haven't seen all of the episodes to this point, is rereading the Stormlight Archive in preparation for Wind and Truth.
Yep.
Which is Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive Book 5 coming out in December. So that's a huge element of 2024. So I guess that's kind of, are we talking about the podcast books or just personally what we want to read?
Personally, what we
alongside?
want to read, we can throw in some podcast books that
Okay.
maybe if you haven't read them yet.
So we're saying no rules. Just
No rules.
throw the books out there.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah,
Let's
throw
do
the
it.
book. Anyway,
Let's start with fantasy. Let's start with books that we've read that we really loved in fantasy.
Okay, cool.
I like that.
Well, I'll start with this one. So I am very, very excited about this upcoming movie. So I have to talk about this book first.
Okay. I know exactly what
Yeah,
you're
I
going to
know.
talk about. Are you kidding me?
This one
It's too easy.
is Dune. And by the way, when I read this book, I listened to it on Audible, and it's a very interesting experience. They have multiple several different people voice acting for it, and it's not one person per chapter. It's for each character, and they have some music in the background, and so it kind of makes it really interesting. The book was so similar to the movie because I saw the movie first and decided I got to read this book. it almost bored me for the first half because I knew exactly what was going to happen, almost word for word.
How many times have you seen Dune, the movie?
I've seen it like 4 times now. It was
I am
great.
not surprised
I
at
was just
all.
completely blown away. I loved it. And so I'm like, I have to get this book on a hardcover. I saw this on Amazon and I'm like, I want this.
I want to
and
see
so
it.
my wife got this
People
for
already
me
saw it, so I get to see it.
for Father's Day last year. I know. Check out, it's blue on the sides.
I love the blue. I mean, I'm
For
a
the
sucker
eyes.
for the edge color on the pages.
I know, dude. And then check out
It's a long book, man.
Oh, dude, it is. It's one of the greats. And honestly, especially once I got in that second half, which I am so stoked for the second part of the movie, is just such a powerful book. The book just blew me away. You got to check out the artwork on the pages here. Yeah, you see the worm.
Wow.
I know, dude. And then there's another one on the other
front cover?
side. Yeah, front cover. You're going to see that. And going through the caves.
Wow.
I know, it's just beautiful. And then the dust cover.
Even the
has
dust
its
cover is
own.
beautiful. On the inside of it.
Yep.
Okay, let me try and show
Yeah,
people.
you got to show some of these. So anyways, this book was fantastic. If you have not read Dune, I highly, highly recommend it. I have not read the following books, unfortunately, of Dune.
There's a ton. I feel like it's such a long series.
You know, I feel like that kind of happens.
Fear is the mind killer.
I know.
It says.
Big quote. I feel like that happens a lot with books. Thanks. Where they have one or a few really good books that are successful, and they feel like they just need to write forever in these books. That is kind of like, I feel like Ender's Game, like this happened with Ender's World and like Orson Scott Card. Like he has like
Shadow of the Hedgehog, all those extra books.
dozens and dozens of books in that world. And anyways, but I'm really
Those are still some of my favorite fantasy
I
books,
know
though.
that is one I'm going to mention in a moment.
Okay. We'll get there.
Yeah,
okay.
But it's a great book. I highly recommend it. Definitely check it out. I don't know if you're one of those people that want to like wait to read the book until after you see the movie so it doesn't spoil like the movie. My dad is one of those people. He's like, I just don't enjoy the movie at all if I read the book first. And so I like to watch the movie, then read the book, and the book just gives you more background to enjoy it even more.
That's so interesting.
I know.
So I feel like most people are like, I want to read the book before I see the movie.
I know.
So I don't get it.
That's
book
me.
spoiled. Because if the book gets spoiled, that's a lot more dry you got to get through. But if the movie gets a little bit spoiled, it's only a couple hours.
I know. I loved it so much. I was like, Dad, you just got to read it anyway.
We'll have to get your dad on the show one of these days because
I know.
he'll have some good opinions on that.
Okay, let's hear it.
Is it my turn?
Yeah,
okay.
it's your turn.
A
Yeah,
book
yeah.
that we recently read together on this show, and we have a review video out for. If you haven't seen that, I'll link it somewhere. But it is The Sunlit Man, which is an absolutely incredible book. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, honestly, it tops Dune. That is the most beautiful book I've ever seen.
I mean, as far as just presence of this book, wow. Let me just say. They did such a good job with like the premium release. I think the only way to get this version still is the premium package, which you should still be able to buy on Brandon Sanderson's website. But
Maybe. There is a limited supply of those. So
if you
heads
get
up.
this book, the premium version, read it in print. That's going to be my...
Ooh.
Because I read this in print. I would say 80 to 90% of the time, I listen to books. And that's a lot of the time. I don't read books as much. I feel
some
like
would say that's most of the time.
there are some statisticians out there who probably would agree with you.
Yes.
But I actually read this page by page. I didn't listen to any of the audio, and I had such a good time.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful book. They have pictures in it that
Oh my gosh, dude! You turned right to a picture. Are you kidding me?
It's so much fun to read. You get to create your own voices for the characters, and I think mine were pretty good in my head. That will probably stay in there.
Yeah.
But
you don't want to show them to us right now.
I loved it. It was so
Stay
good.
in there.
I loved how it connects to the overall Cosmere. I love just the characters in it, the book, and the fact that I'm used to reading Brandon Sanderson like sagas of thousands of pages. So to have like, I think it was like 450 pages.
Yeah.
And it's just a complete story in 450 pages.
Just one and done.
It was great. I loved it. That's high on my list. Recently finished it. If you haven't read it yet, just came out. Go ahead and read it.
Oh man,
Please do.
Would you recommend reading that book before reading any of the Stormlight Archive books?
That is a really good question. My answer would probably be no.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me sad because that means a lot of people potentially won't be able to just go out and read it.
Yeah.
I would say as long as you've read the first 2 books of Stormlight Archive, you're probably good.
Yep. I would agree with that. I think you'll just get a lot more enjoyment out of that. Although
You'll miss some things, but
will.
I don't think it'll be huge. I think it'll be just fine.
Yeah, I will say though, the other day, I cannot remember if I mentioned this on our podcast talking about the Sunlit Man. I had a coworker who was like, "Oh yeah, I read the Sunlit Man," and he's never read any of the Stormlight Archive books. And
wow, as his first.
yeah, it wasn't his first. He's read Mistborn.
Okay,
but he read that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And you still liked it? He's like, dude, I loved it.
It's a good story. Really good book. He's a great writer.
So still good.
You could read it, even having not read the Stormlight Archive, but I would recommend it.
Yeah.
I think you will enjoy it a little bit better with a little more context on the characters. So
yeah, I think that's great. So I'll go with my next book. I don't have it here with me, so Jaden is going to pop up on the screen now. Just kidding. Good luck with the editing.
Yeah,
I know. No, it's this book is Ender's Game.
It's good.
Yeah, still one of my all-time favorites. I loved the book. The way that Orson Scott Card just describes how smart Ender is throughout the book, it just makes me want to be smart. He's just he goes through so much pain and through so much trouble, and the whole book was just massive twists and turns. Even though it was such an older book and I'd read it just a few years ago, I did not know the ending happened the way that it did. Completely threw me for a loop. Like I was completely blown away by this book. It sounds like you were a big fan of this book as well.
Huge fan. I read this when I was younger. I probably read this in middle school.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. I've read it a couple of times. It's really, really good.
Yeah. Still a book that I recommend to pretty much everyone.
And they made a movie out of it. Have you seen it?
It's a terrible movie.
I've only seen actually parts of it, which surprises me that I haven't seen the movie all the way through because I loved the book so much.
Oh, man.
Should I not watch it? Because I've seen some clips and I'm like, that looks kind of cool.
Oh, man. It was, imagine like Ender's Game plus Disney Channel, and like that's what you get. And I think it's because one of the main actors is like Rico from like the Hannah Montana show or something like that. And he's supposed to be the big bully that beats up on Ender. And
so you're saying you can lock yourself into a role for life if you choose the wrong childhood role.
I'm telling you, Harry Potter will be Harry Potter forever.
What is Harry Potter doing in this movie?
Well, so my brother just watched The Lord of the Rings for his very first time over this Christmas break.
Which blows my mind. You and I have watched Lord of the Rings 3 or 4 times.
I know, dude.
And your brother hasn't even seen it?
He was young. He has changed. He's fixed it. But we watched it for the first time, and my wife was sitting there watching it with us, and she's like...
Was it her first time, too?
It was not her first time.
Good.
Thank you very much.
You're lucky.
I know. It was a close call. Woo! But she mentioned the same thing about Frodo. Basically, like, one of those characters who will forever be Frodo. Like...
That's how it goes.
Yeah,
it's
Frodo,
like
Harry Potter, Hermione.
I don't make these decisions. That's just how it works.
Ron Weasley, all those guys.
Yeah,
forever be.
I don't know. You know what? I feel like Hermione may have escaped that. She's been in
I
so
actually
many
agree
movies.
with you on that, and she might have escaped that.
What's her name?
Emma Stone? Nope. No. I can't remember.
Emma Watson.
Emma Watson.
Yep,
I always get Emma Stone and Emma Watson mixed up. I'm like, I'm going to embarrass myself.
Very difficult. Actors' names. I'm so bad. But
I know.
that is, she's been in a ton of movies. She was in Beauty and the Beast.
You're right. And she did a good job in it.
She did. And I was like, that's surprising. It's surprising that she's the only one from the Harry Potter series who's not like, oh, that's Snape. Or that's Draco Malfoy.
You don't like horror movies, so I know you haven't seen this one. I'm not a huge fan of them, but I watched The Woman in Black back in high school.
No chance I'm watching that.
I think... Is it Harry that plays in that? I think it is him that plays in it. Anyways... You cannot get out of your head. They have a train scene at the beginning. Looks like they're going to Hogwarts. Like, all these things, you're like, use a Patronus. Like, all these things, you're like, it's just hilarious. Could not stop laughing the whole time. I was in high school when that movie came out.
So those are some of the... We know this. Some actors, you just got to stick with the roles you've been given.
I know. Rough.
Unfortunate.
Rough. Yeah.
Well...
But he made a good Harry Potter.
He did. Absolute legend. He shouldn't need to act in any more stuff. You know, he just lived that life forever.
That's just it. That's his thing.
Okay, is it my turn next?
Yeah, go for it.
My next fantasy book that I want to share, I also don't have, so I'm going to pop a sweet picture of it on the screen. Not now, because I haven't said what it is.
Oh.
And it's The 3-Body Problem.
Oh, The 3-Body Problem.
I wasn't sure if you or me was going to get to this one first.
I know.
But Marty read this book. and then said, Jaden, you have to read this book because I want to talk about this book and I need someone to talk about this book.
I had no one to talk to about this. You can't read The Three-Body Problem and have no one to talk to about it.
And
it changes your perspective on life.
As a friend, is to read the books so that we can have these conversations.
His job as a friend is to read the books that I tell him to.
It's gone well so far, if I'm being honest. Three-Body Problem I absolutely loved because it's a fantasy book. What is it, like science fantasy? What would you call that?
I call it science fiction. Sci-fi.
Oh, sci-fi. Yeah, that's the thing. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
There's not just
really
fantasy.
good because it includes a lot of like the deeper science, a lot of the physics, a lot of the I just love it. I think it's great. They did a good job with the storyline. It's just great. It's fun.
So I know not all of the physics was real in that book.
No, but they go deep into it. Is what I'm saying. Like they don't shy away from hard.
Totally. And that's what I was going for is like, I feel like I still learned more about science from that book.
Yeah.
Like I was just more intrigued about the world and like how little tiny protons and neutrons work. And like,
yeah, I mean, they don't go too deep into that because I don't think rehydrating is a thing.
Rehydrate.
So that's probably against the normal physics principles, but it's a fantastic book.
It was, I thought it was amazing. It made me just like rethink like even like how science works and stuff. And like, can science just be patterns that we've just happened to observe that are just happening to happen right now, but they're not actually a law? It's just been by chance.
Yeah.
Like
just
all these like
occurs enough that we turn it into a scientific theory.
Yeah. You're like, oh, this is always going to happen. But like, is it always going to happen? It's just very, very fascinating.
That's what makes it a great book. And it's a series. I've only read the first book in it. Yep. So I will say the second book in the series is going to be on my list for 2024. But
yes. And
you've already started it though.
I'm halfway through the second book and it's still great. So
how do you read multiple books at the same time? Does anybody else do that? Like have multiple books going at the same time? I cannot do that.
Oh, man.
If I switch to another book, I'm going to have to finish that second book before I go back to the
I know. Well, the problem is I'm doing this podcast at the same time as reading another book.
So this is all I read.
I know, dude. I know. It's just, I just am getting greedy because I'm like, I just got to read that book and I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to read it next. And so I was already halfway through by the time we started our whole podcast series. And so I'm like, well, like I got to finish it. So I'm trying to find a way to do it.
I guess that's fair.
But with the Three-Body Problem, this is not a major spoiler because it's on the back of the book. But what I will give it is that it is an alien book.
That's true.
It is a book about aliens. And what I love about the book, it is probably the most realistic take on what would happen if we had contact with aliens.
Also, don't think of it as like a alien invasion, like Martian guys. It's like, it's very different than that.
It's a realistic take. Like, yeah, I love it, dude.
You told me that right when I first was going to read the book.
Did it give you the wrong vibe?
It totally gave me the wrong vibe.
Oh, shoot, dude. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Book. Oh, man. But like, no, it's talks about the interaction between the cultures and stuff for sure, but it's not like alien invasion. They come down in a spaceship and there's these like green men. It's like where most of them will be like an invasion, attack, all this stuff it's kind of weird.
Yeah,
but I think this book did a much better job of that.
I like that. Have you seen the movie Signs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I was young.
M. Night Shyamalan. You got to watch that one again. It's seriously one of my favorite movies like of all time because the story is so good. Just it's.
I'll watch it.
Anyways, I won't spoil like the story of it. Besides just that, like that is also an alien movie. I'm not a huge alien movie fan, but when they do it right, you can really nail an alien movie. And Signs, I feel like, is one of those that again is a more realistic take on like what would happen if aliens were to have come.
I mean, not that we know.
Oh, we know.
Just kidding. Somebody knows. But okay, that's good. I do like the book. I like the series, and I'm pretty darn excited to read the second book. Is it good so far?
Yeah, that's great. It's same approach, realistic take of like, now what? Like that from this first book.
It does end to a point where you're like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah,
it's cool.
It's just cool.
I'm excited.
Really
I'm excited. What else is on your list?
Okay.
Of books that you've enjoyed.
Other books that I've read. Let me see if
Are you still in fantasy, or are we going into a new category? I think I've exhausted my fantasy list for now.
There's just a few other books that I wanted to mention, books that I've just really loved or just enjoyed. This one's just a fun one. This is the Steve Jobs book. This book was wild. It is just society likes to build up people as being just like these amazing figures that, for example, Steve Jobs.
Larger than life.
Yeah, larger than life is a great way to say it. Steve Jobs has just built up Apple to create the most valuable company in the world. and did all these amazing things. He started Pixar, made it to what it is today. He helped create Toy Story. He created the iPod, the iPhone, started iTunes. We're buying individual songs instead of a whole album. Like the guy, it was just extremely revolutionary.
A visionary for sure.
Yes. But this book, Walter Isaacson, I believe.
Isaacson, yeah.
Yeah, is the author. Have you read this book?
No.
Okay, it's a great book. But Walter Isaacson is just an amazing biographer because, at least from what I can tell, you're not really getting any bias from it. Mm-hmm. You are seeing exactly who Steve Jobs is. All of the good, all of the bad, the people that hated him. You get a sense that Steve Jobs was crazy. Like, he was just insane. And there's maybe a certain level of crazy that you have to be, but I think I don't know if it was some sort of disorder that he had or something like that, but like he just couldn't handle himself sometimes. But he was also at the same time, because sometimes he was like, everyone is either the worst person in the world or the greatest person in the world. Like there was no in between for the guy.
Wow.
And he really let people know when he hated them, like to tear them apart. But then it would also walk out of meetings just crying his eyes out, and like in the middle of board meetings with people, and people are like, "Who are you?" Or he'd go to meetings and like would not be having showered for weeks and not using deodorant or anything. And he's like, "I only eat apples, therefore I will not smell bad." And just like all these crazy things, and people are like, "You're not allowed in this meeting room because you reek, and I can't stand you here." It's like to the point where he got thrown out of his own company, Apple, at one point.
What a wild ride.
So it was just great. It's a really, really good book, but then you also see why he is a visionary at the same time. Like he was just able to be brilliant in his design and process and everything. I really enjoyed the book.
That's cool. I may have to throw that on my list too.
I know, like that. It's a good book. So
cool.
Add it to the list.
Okay, that means it's my turn. We're still outside of fantasy at this point, and I want to talk about a book called Multipliers.
Ooh,
which is a fantastic book, especially about it's by Liz Wiseman, who, as it just so happens, is a family friend.
Really?
But, yeah.
What?
Cool story, eh?
Wow.
But
is this like a famous book, or is this like a book like, hey, you should read this?
Most people have heard of this book.
She's a family friend?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, more friends
is
with
there
my
a story
mom than me, but yeah. So
okay, your mom also knows
Howard Lyon.
Howard Lyon.
Yeah.
Knows Liz Wiseman.
She's pretty connected, I tell you what.
That's insane, dude.
Who knew?
I know.
She's interesting. But that's probably a story for another time. But this is actually a really good book because it talks about just the interactions at work. It talks about the interactions between the workplace and just other leadership capabilities, where how like leaders do their best work when they can inspire others to be their best selves. So they like are able to multiply the effects of other people by empowering them, by helping guide them to like the right motivations, things like that. So really, really good book. Greg McKeown does a little bit of like a foreword in this book. And Greg McKeown's books, Effortless and Essentialism, are also high on my list. So I don't have those as a highlight today, but he's also a fantastic author. If you want to listen to those too, he narrates those himself. Those are really good.
I like that.
Those three I would definitely put high on the list. But Multipliers is a really good one. She just wrote another book. I'm blanking on the name now, but it's another one about like leadership and becoming someone. Impact players. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
It's just people that make an actual impact at work and why those are so much more valuable than just a regular employee. So she does a good job. She spent so much time researching all of these books. So it's cool to see what that comes out with.
So would you say you were inspired by the book?
I was very inspired by the book.
Okay, very cool.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Awesome. Okay, my last book for books that I have read that I would recommend is Never Split the Difference.
This so good.
It's by Chris Voss. One of the reasons why I was so interested in reading this book in the first place is I don't know if you get all those masterclass advertisements all over like your stuff. Yeah. I'm actually super fascinated in it. I'd love to check out all those master classes.
Well, if you ever fly on Delta,
do they advertise for it a lot?
No, you can watch them.
No way.
It's part of their flight entertainment.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah.
I gotta do it.
You gotta do it.
I'm flying Delta just for that.
That's why I fly Delta.
Wow.
No, it's not.
That's awesome. No, bad story with Delta. And they made me miss my flight once. Like I was literally, I do not feel good about it. I was on my way like to just onto a flight, right? And all of a sudden we get to the airport, hour and a half early. The security line was terrible.
Oh, you gotta be TSA pre-check. What are you doing?
I know, dude. This was years ago, dude.
Okay.
It was years ago.
Fine.
But we finally get through the line. We are running to the plane to get there on time. Literally, as we are rounding the corner to get to the desk to check in, they're saying, last call for this plane check, like flight or whatever. Like, you have to be there in like a few minutes. We're getting to the desk as they're saying that. The doors are already closed, and they will not let us on the plane.
Oh, that's lame.
It was so infuriating, dude. And the plane sat there for another 20 minutes before it even left.
Oh.
And they wouldn't do anything about it. I was very upset.
You're still a little fiery about that.
So a little bitter about Delta, but
they added masterclass.
And so maybe have to try it again.
Maybe it's a good time to try them again.
But anyways, he's got a masterclass on negotiation. The title of the book is Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as If Your Life Depended on It. So this guy, Chris Voss, is a former hostage negotiator for the FBI. So this book is full of cool stories about
crazy stories
of hostage negotiations. Jaden's read this too.
It's a great book.
Yeah. And he also kind of talks about like how do you negotiate if you're in a hostage situation where you can't say like, well, I'll take half of them.
When you can't do that. Compromise is not an option.
It's not an option. Yeah. And so he talks about the different strategies that you can use to get a negotiation done to get everything that you want.
And I love that it's not fluffy and flowery. It's like, this is what you do. Like, this is what you have to do in this certain scenario.
This is a book that you could listen to, but if you listen to it, you have to get the book because there's so many like steps on like, do this, do that.
Yeah, I regret it. It's
a read book.
I listened to it and I was like, I just need to be writing this stuff down. It's one of those books where you should probably have a notebook in front of you while you're reading it.
Yep. Fun fact though, this book is narrated by Michael Kramer. The guy the guy who reads all the Stormlight Archives books. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, and when you listen to it, it's phenomenal, like the whole time. So he does actually a really good job.
It's a pretty cool fun fact.
So I know, it's awesome. So that is my last book on.
Okay, I'll do my last one then. I got two. Sorry.
Yeah, give me two. Give me your last two.
What if I made it three?
You can make it three.
Okay. Well, because in the sense that this is a sequel, so I'll kind of recommend the first one, and then I have another book. Okay. This is called The Passion Paradox. It's the only one that I physically have of the series. The first one is called Peak Performance, and they're both by Brad Stolberg and Steve Magnus. I will show you the book. I don't think it's focusing on this, so I'm going to show you a bunch of blurry books. But if you're listening to the podcast, you're not going to care.
We'll have them listed out in the description for you.
Yeah, maybe we'll put links or something. That's a good idea.
Jaden put it in there.
Just kidding. Great. But yeah, one of the reasons I really like it is because I feel like I'm someone who's constantly like, I'm going to explore this new thing and I'm going to like dive as deep as I can into it and be like incredibly passionate about it and work really hard, do all this effort. Like I'm looking at my bike on the indoor trainer as we record this and I'm thinking, yeah, sometimes I get a little bit deep into things. And so the Passion Paradox, really, really good. I think it helps you understand like what does passion really mean? What are you passionate about and how does that affect just your trajectory of life? And it's a great sequel to Peak Performance because Peak Performance is all about like how can you maximize your potential in every area of your life and
without burning out.
Exactly, not burning out and not because you get to that point and then that's what they talk about in the Passion Paradox. If you're too passionate about something, you lose interest in it. Like I'll give you an example. It talks a lot about Olympians and how Olympians who train for their entire lives to peak at 18, like especially gymnasts and others where they're very, very young at the Olympics. They've done nothing else. They didn't go to school. They didn't do any of this stuff so that they could just train and train and train and train. And even if they're passionate about it, once they complete a certain goal that they had in their mind, they're like, their life becomes meaningless. Like, how do you avoid that? How do you continue to be passionate about something and balance that with actual life? So, great book. Peak Performance, also fantastic. I love this one.
Yeah, I will say I've read those books too. One of my favorite things about that book is it just gives you permission to explore different like things to be passionate about.
Yep.
He pretty much just says like, I can't remember the exact phrases or anything, but it's just like, it's okay to like go into something and then realize that you don't like it. You don't have to be embarrassed from like society saying like, well, you were going all in on that. What happened? But like, it's actually is a good thing. It's healthy to like try things out and try multiple things.
And the fact that now that I'm very old, right? And like on the decline of life at this
Very
point.
old.
I'm basically 30, which means life is just, that comes with its own set of issues. But
very concerned about
it's
that.
shocking how all of these little things that you can become passionate about, become interested in, tie so much better than you might think to other areas of your life. Like the fact that if you learn how to train for cycling, even if you're only passionate about that for a few years, or if you get injured or all these things, the act of doing that, the act of learning it, being passionate about it, diving into something will help you in work. It will help you in connecting with other people. It will help you in learning how to train at the gym or doing different things. It's like experience in any area and passion and intensity of just learning and experiencing will make a difference in your life. And they talk about that a lot. There's just like branch yourself out because it will make you a better person, which leads me in to my last recommendation, which is Range by Dave Epstein. No relation. As far as I know. But no relation. It does,
I know.
it
No,
does
it's just
mention
funny. I don't know why it took me a second to put together. Like, what are you talking about? In relation to
Anyway.
you? I'm like, oh.
now you'll remember the author of the book. But the book is called Range. It's one of my favorites. I'll put an image of it on the screen because I don't have it physically with me. I listened to it. But it talks about how the best performers, especially it talks about CEOs and leaders and things like that, have a random, it seems, breadth of experience. Like some of the best people to come in and lead a company aren't necessarily people that have been doing that thing their entire career. One of the best stories that they tell in that one, so many great stories, and they tell a lot of these, is the fact that like some labs will discover things that other labs have been working on for decades accidentally as they're researching other things. Like, so they'll be researching. Think about the fact that a lot of the inventions that we have came from the Apollo missions. Like they were going to the moon, but they accidentally discovered something that made everyone's life easier on Earth. Like all those things where context in different areas and just random ideas that can cross over from one specialty to another actually make a huge difference and can make you more successful in life. So that adds on to kind of peak performance and passion paradox, where it's you can feel free to explore what you're interested in at any time. If you feel like it, you can start reading fantasy books and make a podcast. Do whatever you want.
That's our passion.
It just allows you to be more free with the things that you're interested in. I think that's a great way to live life and not feel stressed about the pressures of be specialized and be the best at one specific thing, and that's the only way to be successful. I think that that's mostly
very
false.
much the world right now, right?
Yeah.
It's just like everyone just saying like, if you're not doing it from the day that you're born, then you're never going to be good enough to compete.
Exactly. And it's not true in many cases. So
Wow.
There you go. Those are some good ones, man. If you read those, you will like them. And then comment and tell me how much you like them if you've already read them, because they're so good.
Okay.
So good.
Well, what are you going to read in 2024?
A few things.
Besides all the Sanderson books that we're rereading, like basically every book he's ever written for the Cosmere, like we're trying to get through as much as we can.
We got a lot of catch up, but the reason I have on my list for 2024 is Wind and Truth. Because the reason we're doing all of this reading is to catch ourselves back up and to prepare ourselves as well as possible for the launch of Wind and Truth in December.
It should be huge. So if you don't read Sanderson and Cosmere, you got to start. First of all, you
also, welcome to the channel. I don't know.
Yeah. Seriously.
Most of our stuff has been that.
Yes.
So.
But that book, it will be book 5 of the Stormlight Archive. It starts with The Way of Kings. That is an amazing book. Read it. But
so good.
Very, very excited for that launch. So that's what we're
most
on the excited
list.
for.
2024, Wind and Truth. Used to be called Knights of Wind and Truth, fun fact.
Oh, yes.
What else do you have?
I'm going to stick with Brandon Sanderson for a moment.
Okay.
This is one of the few Sanderson books that I have not read yet. This is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. And first of all, this book looks beautiful as well, like all the other secret projects do. Very excited about this book. So,
that is clean.
Don't know too much about it besides it's in the Cosmere. Probably see Hoyt in it at some point. He's in all of them. But it looks great. Looks beautiful, and so excited about it.
Very cool. This should probably be on my list. I will say my Sanderson list consists mostly of what we're going to read, but also Tress of the Emerald Sea, which you let me borrow your fantastic copy, so I'll show that to the people.
Great.
Yeah, I think it focused that time.
Wow, he's got to focus for Tress, though. That's a beautiful book.
Fair. But yeah, incredible design as per usual with Brandon Sanderson. But
and Howard
I'm very
Lyon.
excited to read it. And Howard Lyon.
Your friend
So good.
Howard Lyon.
I wish I could say that. My mom is more well connected than I am by a significant margin. But yeah, this is a fantastic book, and I'm excited to read it. From what I've heard, it's a fantastic book. My wife has read it. You've read it.
Has she finished it now?
I think she's just about done because she swapped over to Stormlight Archive to follow the podcast.
I know.
And now she's deep into that. I don't know if she got finished it, but.
Oh man, I love Tress of the Emerald Sea. I am so excited for you to experience that book. It just so many parts of that book were it's just a fun book. Just very story-like, and it's that'll
be a blast.
It's a lot of
fun. So we got a lot of Brandon Sanderson on the list.
Yes. So you through your book.
I'm going
to throw
Take
in
it away.
another one of my non-fiction books this year. Another Walter Isaacson book. This is the Elon Musk Walter Isaacson book.
Walter Isaacson really profiles some
I know
serious people.
Check that out. I mean, can you imagine? That's a lot of pressure. And apparently, he followed Elon Musk around for like 2 years.
I read the first Elon book.
Yes,
and it was intense.
It was intense, and I've already read the first few chapters of this book, and I can tell you, Walter Isaacson's amazing. Like the other book was pretty good. This one, you just understand where Elon Musk is coming from. I'll say in the first few chapters, he grew up in South Africa, and he lived a brutal life. Like, he describes his life. He's like, yeah, I basically went to this camp that was Lord of the Flies.
Oh, man.
And he's like, I'm not even kidding either. Well, he didn't say this, but like Walter Isaacson's like putting it together. And he's like, these kids were put into this camp where they were given rationed amounts of food, and they were encouraged to beat each other up. And so people like they would say like, yeah, like the leaders there would say like, yeah, like make sure you don't end up like this dumb idiot who like died like a few years ago because of this, and this, and they don't even care. Like, they're just part of their training.
That's insane.
He grew up in an insane world, and so he just learned like how to survive through that. And he was the nerdy kid that got beat up all the time. Also had a super crazy dad who was super horrible to him. Anyways, it was really crazy reading this. Like, wow, Elon Musk, like, no wonder why he doesn't care, like, give a crap what anybody thinks about him. It's just like, I've been through it all. Like, so I'm really excited to finish this book and see more on the back. You get that awesome
SpaceX,
yeah, SpaceX. Like, what is that? Super Heavy, the rocket, or
no, that's Starship.
Or that's Starship. That's nuts, dude. So very, very stoked about that book.
Okay, that's a fun one.
Yeah,
there's some exciting stuff going on. I don't have a lot of the books I want to read in 2024.
That's fine,
which I guess makes sense. But a couple of them that I'm excited about. One of them is Die with Zero. Have you ever heard of that book?
No.
Okay, so the premise of the book is the concept that you should live to like build your self-value, in the sense that if you die with like $5 million, that's useless to you, right? That's a pretty obvious concept. Like, you don't get any real value out of that. Like, your kids at that point are already older. It's like, what's the real point of saving all that money just so you can pass it on?
Yeah.
But even more than that, it says if you have like, let's say $10,000 when you're 30 years old, right? If you invested that, you could have $50,000 when you're 70.
Yep.
As an example. But would $50,000 at 70 provide you more value as a like life experience than the $10,000 spent when you're 30?
Wow.
So it's like, when you're 30, you're younger, you're fitter, you can go on a trip, you can go and explore more. When you're 70, what are you going to do with $50,000 that you would really enjoy? Would it not be worth 40 years of memories of a great experience with that money? Like, it starts to think about, what is the actual value of money more than a dollar amount?
Does that concept give you anxiety at all? Me, as an accountant and finance person, I'm like,
well, you should read the book and tell me what you think then.
We should. That would be fascinating. Like it.
I'm excited to read it. I've read a little bit of it already, and I think it's great. I think it resonates a lot with the things where you're like, it almost, I think, is probably better for someone who's more of a serial like saver. Like, just has an issue with spending money. Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to spend money on that. I'd rather save the money. I just like watching the number go up in my bank account.
I know people like that.
I will die
with like lots of money and never have spent it on anything.
There's a lot of people that are that way, and it's just sometimes more fun to see the money in your bank account than to spend it.
Yep.
But it's also, how do you give yourself permission to spend it? And I think Die with Zero is a good way to do that. To say like, spending the money is actually an investment into your life, to give you experiences, to give you, and again, I haven't even read the book, but I'm pretty excited about it, and I've heard the premise from a lot of friends, and they've really enjoyed it too. So.
Wow, and they're all broke now, huh? Just kidding.
Yep, that's.
They all have $0.
They haven't died yet, so they're not at zero.
No,
yet.
I'm just kidding. No, it actually does sound really fascinating. I'd love to check that book out.
It's an interesting concept, but I'll have more information in the review. If we do a review on that, I don't know. We'll see where the channel ends up if we do nonfiction stuff, but it should be a fun one to read.
Awesome. Okay, my next book is, I don't know if I'm going to read this one this year yet. This is The Lord of the Rings. I've read...
Oh, who wrote that?
This is J.R.R., the one and only Tolkien.
Ah, yes.
But...
That's actually a really cool book. Did you show them the side?
I know. So this book is probably, like, is just...
Can you see the writing there? That's sweet.
Super beautiful. I'm going to, like, say, this is the most beautiful book I've seen. Every single book I pull up. But honestly, holding up... So I don't know if I'm going to read this one yet this year, just because I've got a lot of other things to read. Yeah. But, like... because I already know the story of The Lord of the Rings, but just holding it, I got this for my birthday. It is just a work of art. This whole volume that he has here is all of his personal artwork that he did while writing the book.
That's cool.
And
I didn't even know he was an artist.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, some of the things that he has in here. And so you just cannot help but hold this book and just feel like this whole thing is just artwork. Like, it is just...
Rivendell, wow.
It is the whole book is just a work of art. Like, it is just beautiful. Like,
that's pretty
just
cool.
Love it. And I'm also blown away, having just watched the Lord of the Rings movies again, how great of a job they did in the movies of designing things to look exactly like his pictures.
That's cool. You gotta love that. And why is it though that you're saying you might not read it?
I just don't know if I have time. Like,
because it's just so
want
long.
To read it.
How long is that book?
This is 3 books. Yeah, it's the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and the Return.
But that's not all 3 books. That's just one of them.
This
right?
is all 3.
That's all 3.
Yep, this is all.
I guess
3.
they're not as long as I thought they were.
Well, I mean,
What's
you
the
see
page
how many
length?
words are on every page? Like, they cram as many as they can on there.
That's fair. It's a small
but like
font.
by the time you get to the end, it's like 1,000 something. So
okay,
it
so
sounds
it's
like a Sanderson book, but
yeah, but it's probably
longer.
probably like 50-60% longer than a Sanderson Stormlight Archive book.
Yep.
So it's reasonable. It just would probably take you a month to read.
Yeah,
and you probably want to have that time with the podcast.
I know, dude. That's the one thing is like the podcast. We're doing it for the people, man. We got to go through and read.
And it's a blast.
Yeah, it is a blast. We love it. So I was just blown away. I think. Oh, here's the Helm's Deep.
I need to put more fantasy on my list of what I want to read this year. Then.
Yeah, dude. Here's this picture. You probably don't remember. I don't know if you remember what Helm's Deep looks like, but that looks exactly
I remember what Helm's Deep looks like
it does in the movie. See the wall on the side.
I
and
just
the
love
castle.
like the notes. Like this literally looks like he drew it on the bottom of a page.
I know, dude.
It's got all his words written on it.
It's amazing. Yeah, this guy
is cool.
Is a legend. It is probably a little bit embarrassing that I haven't read it.
Theoden.
With
Rise to Helm's Deep.
I know. You read those parts and you just get the chills. You're like, oh man, that part. Good. Oh man, I was just speaking of the Lord of the Rings. We were watching Return of the King the other day, and Theoden probably gives one of the greatest speeches of all time right before they go to the battle, and they're like, ride down, ride to ruin.
Oh man, it's good.
Shields will be broken, spears will be broken, shields will be splintered. I just love the whole thing. It's just like, oh my goodness.
That's good, man. That's
it's just awesome, dude. It just makes me want to go out and do something cool. Whenever I see that, it's just
get
awesome.
The speech. That's what I should watch when I'm riding my bike, man.
Oh man,
that'd be crazy.
Seriously, runs by with a sword and you're on your horse or your bike and you're just like, ah!
I love that. That's a good plan. That's gonna be a future episode.
Oh yeah, Jaden riding his bike while watching The Lord of the Rings.
Not just me. You have to join me.
Okay.
My other book, though, is not fantasy for this year. All my fantasy reading is probably going to be podcast related. So,
yep.
My next one is called 0 to 1. I'm a big fan of books that have 0 in the title, I guess. So 0 to 1. Have you read this one?
I am part of the way through it, but I had to stop because I was running through some other things.
Okay, so we tend to have a lot of books.
We read all the books at the same time.
On the list at the same time. So 0 to 1 is basically the concept of startups, right?
Yeah.
How do you go from nothing to something? 0 to 1. Like they talk about, everyone's looking for a multiple. How do I turn this startup and 10x it next year? but it's like, how do you go from zero to something? And I love the stories. I love the concepts they talk about, because startups are really very much, in my mind, more of a survivorship bias kind of a situation, where it's like all the companies that exist now are the ones that everyone looks up to because they survived and they got built. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they know the secret.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many factors that could be a part of it. I like that it explores different areas and different ideas, but I want to finish it this year. I've started it and I want to finish it.
Well, that's a good point that you brought up. Like, we read so many, like, I'm really excited to read that book and finish that one too. And you'd ask me, like, how do you read multiple books at once? And the reason is that I like to read a physical copybook while I'm listening to another one. So I have two books. I have
Whoa, the same book,
at
though,
the
right?
same exact time. No, just like, because I gotta have a book.
He's a psychopath.
I'm a crazy person. No, it's I like having a book that I can listen to while I'm like doing chores or driving.
Yeah.
But then I also like to sit down and read a book, and I found that I can do both of those things like separately at two different books.
Okay. So you can be listening to a book while you do certain things, but then also sit down to read a different book at a different time.
Yep. Which is what happens with most of the secret projects from Sanderson. I'll read those physical copies and then listen to another one.
They're beautiful books.
They're awesome.
Everyone loves them.
I know.
That's quite the list. Anything else? Anyone?
Last book. This is another book that I had started, but I had to pause because of our podcast. I'm really, really excited to finish this one.
What is it?
This is the book Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. This book, just so you know, it says just plain awesome - Brandon Sanderson. Whoa, yeah. So Brian McClellan, from what I understand, was the first person that Sanderson had in mind up until a few years ago that he would have finish his books if he were ever to die early. And when you start reading this book, you understand why. This guy can write a story that is fast-paced, super interesting, and super good. Like, I would say, so this book is pretty much the French Revolution like type time period and like thing where that's how the book starts.
These quotes are crazy, man. Have you read these?
Yeah, read some of them.
Okay, guns, swords, and magic together. What more could you want?
Yep.
The next one is a French Revolution with wizards.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, dude. Like,
could very well knock George R.R. Martin off his throne.
Yep. Who said that?
That was Speculative Book Review.
Ooh.
Who knows who they are?
I know, they're probably gonna be huge.
Do they even have a
all
YouTube
the commenters? The commenters will be like, "Who are you?"
But Brandon Sanderson says, "Innovative magic, quick-paced plot, interesting world. I had a blast."
Oh, dude.
How does he have time to read?
Dude, I don't know, dude. I don't know, but
that's awesome, though.
Yeah.
Is this the first book of it?
It is. Well, and the whole premise, like the first chapter, like it doesn't spoil the book because it's the first chapter, but
spoiler.
They overthrow like the government, and the whole book is starting from that point. Like after they behead all the royalty and
it is the French Revolution.
Yeah, dude, it is really. They've got a guillotine, like and everything. It's nuts.
What a ride! Okay.
Yeah, dude, and the whole book after that is trying to deal with trying to bring the nation together without it falling apart.
Why
afterwards.
are there so many good books that we need to read?
I know.
Like even just from fantasy, another shout out to like some of our favorite channels, like Daniel Green and Capturing Words. All these channels is like, how do you read all these books?
I know.
How do I make time for this? This is not my full-time job.
No.
You might not know this.
It might not know. In case you haven't figured out.
It takes a full time to be reading all these books.
Yeah, with less than 1,000 subscribers, can't be your first full-time job.
Surprise, this is my full-time job.
He makes nothing. If you'd like to sponsor us, reach out.
Yeah, seriously. Anything helps. No, it's such a blast to read through these. And I'm glad that we have a good mix of fantasy, nonfiction, business, self-help, a lot of fun stuff in there. So
yeah, let us know if you check out any of the books, if you've read any of them.
And what's on your list, right? What's on your list for 2024?
Yeah, what are you going to read? And what have you read that you've loved that you just want to share? So
if there's something we have to read this year that needs to just slot in there somewhere, maybe for the podcast, maybe individually, if there's a book you loved, let us know.
If there's a book you've written.
Ooh, even better. Thank you. Another shout out, right?
No, dude.
To Ryan Skeffington. Thank you again for the books.
We'll be reading it.
We are excited about them. Thank you for sending them over. But with that, we're excited. There's a lot to do. And we come out with these episodes twice a week. So if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're excited to have each and every person along for the journey because it is so much fun.
Thanks.